Aloha, welcome back to Aina Bear Farm. It's June now, and we have gone almost 3 months exactly without any measurable rainfall. So we're in a pretty bad drought. This is definitely one of the worst I've seen in the 6 years I've been here. Usually, and specifically, I'd say this one is particularly bad because we've had 4 rainfalls since December. And so a couple of those were decent. I think one was even like 5 inches, but it's just really been sparse. And this is supposed to be coming out of our wet season. And you can see the ground is just bone dry. I mean, dust bowl dry. So we're here in our agroforestry system, and I just thought I'd share some of my strategies for dealing with the drought in a system like this. And it's a little tricky because, one of the kind of main principles, certainly in permaculture, and it sort of crosses over into syntropic style agroforestry, is that you keep your shade up when you're dry. And so you can see all this cut tithonia here, and like here's an ulu or breadfruit tree. So this is like one of our anchor long-term species. And then there's some pigeon pea around it. And the pigeon pea is providing a little bit of shade, but I don't have any other shade trees in the area. Anything big anyways. Here's a ice cream bean that eventually will provide a little bit. And then we've got the bananas, which are far, 10 feet from the ulu tree. So the tithonia, which was about maybe 10 feet when I planted it, or when I cut it, was the closest thing we had to shade. But the reality is that it was really mostly just shading the grass between the rows. And so I left it up for a while, wanting it to block some wind and to create at least a little bit of shade. But it had bloomed flowers, was starting to get pretty woody, and I had to make the decision that I would rather prune it and dump it on the fruit tree rows to use as mulch than to rely on what little tiny bit of shade it was providing for the fruit tree rows themselves. So it's kind of counter to how it's often done, but it's a timing thing, and it just kind of brings you back to how context of where you are and what's going on in your particular system really means everything. And in this situation, I just decided that I would rather have the deep mulch than the little bit of shade from the tithonia. And then we've got these larger ice cream beans in between the rows here, and then another row. Find a nice size one up on this side as well. And so they're getting decent height. Some of them are 10 feet, but they're just not very spread out, and they don't have a ton of foliage on them, so they're not providing a lot of shade. And some of our taller, more full banana clumps are doing a decent amount of shade, but every time they start to fruit, I cut them down and use those as mulch as well. And so one of the things with this system is it's on irrigation, so you can see all the tithonia coming back nice and green, and that is largely due to the fact that I have an irrigation line running. It's a drip line right along the tithonia there. If I didn't have that, I would have maybe reconsidered if this was like a completely dry system, and you just let the chips fall where they will in the dry season and then let it bounce back in the wet season. But I did not want to set it up that way because we do get dry almost every year. We're actually a winter monsoon climate, And so it's kind of backwards right now. Usually this is what it looks like towards the end of the summer, September, going into October, before we get back to our wet season over the winter. So I don't know, hopefully we'll have a wet summer, because if we're this dry at the beginning of the dry season, we might be in a lot of trouble, especially in terms of like brush fires and, you know, water restrictions and all that kind of stuff. So really hoping for some rain. Got a long way to go to make it up. But between the Tithonia, which is underneath all this cut grass, so you can see like the stems there, the dried leaves, and then this is all guinea grass that goes on the top there. We do have a nice deep bed, you know, between 1 and 2 feet of mulch material, and I watered very heavily with a hose the fruit tree rows before I put the mulch on, because I wanted more water distribution than just the lines where the irrigation is. And I do have 2 irrigation lines that run on the fruit tree rows, so it's a little bit more spread out, but it's still, you know, those drip systems. I think these have emitters like every 8 inches, and it's just not going to spread to cover, you know, a lot of the feeder roots around the trees. It's going to get a nice deep watering and force the roots to go a little deeper, which is great. But before I put all this mulch on, I wanted to, see, we're losing another leaf, and that becomes mulch. I wanted to get it really nice and saturated underneath there. And then now with the irrigation lines running under there, I don't really have to worry about, you know, rain hitting the top of the mulch and kind of slumping off to the sides, which can be an issue if you're solely dependent on rainwater for your irrigation. In a couple of spots we completely took down the larger banana because they were fruiting and there was no like, you know, mother or adult plants to take over. So like we've got this little one here, 1, 2, and then 3 there, and then you can see they get bigger in the back. And then we did mow all this grass, so you can see the green coming back. I mean, guinea grass is tough stuff. It's pretty unbelievable with so little rain, and you give it one mow and it'll just start growing back immediately. I mean, it takes a lot to kill it. It's definitely slowed down right now because of the lack of water, but it's far from dying. And then now we've got some space for these ice cream beans to kind of maybe spread out, fill out a little bit more as the in-between, since the Tithonia is not like all crowding in from both sides. But, you know, I just thought it'd be interesting to share. We haven't made a lot of videos lately because I've just been so busy battling the drought, making sure everything is watered and you know, taken care of. I don't want to lose anything. And yeah, in this system, I thought, you know, this might be interesting to just kind of check it out and let me know what you think. Shade versus mulch, dry season, wet season, irrigation, how things are going where you are, this, that, and the other. And we'll see you again here soon at Aina Bear Farm. Aloha.